3, 2.
Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Mesechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on top of Daf Samech Tet, Amud Aleph. Really, 2 words before the beginning of Samech Tet Amud Aleph. Today's Amud is being learned. L'schut Refuah Shelema of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, and also for Refuah Shelema of Yasmin Bat Sarah, that should have Refuah Shelema, also for Refuah Shelema of Shahram Shalom Ben Turan, should all see Yeshuot Berechamot, and should have Refuah Shelema. Amen. So we discuss the scenario in which an achbar, a rat, mice, falls into beer, whether or not it's considered really not an tam l'shvach or not an tam l'pigam. Does it enhance the taste? Does it make it worse? And really, the Gemara said it will exactly depend on that. Rav holds perhaps that not an tam l'pigam is mutar, but the reason that he said is asur when the achbar fell into the shchar, into the beer, is because it's not an tam l'shvach. It does not necessarily decrease or create foul taste. It actually enhances the taste, maybe, said the Gemara. Now says the Gemara, how about if the achbar, the same rat, falls into not shchar, but this time vinegar? Nafal letochala mai. What happens if he falls into vinegar? Now vinegar has a stronger taste than beer. But so that's the basis of the question, and of course, each one has a different taste. So maybe vinegar is going to be not tam l'pigam. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Hillel, Rav Ashi. Rav Hillel said to Rav Ashi, this actually also was a story that happened by Rav Kana. Hava ufta be Rav Kana. The same thing happened, that a achbar fell into vinegar in the house of Rav Kana. Ve'asa Rav Kana. Rav Kana said the whole vinegar is asur. Now, what's the reason for that? Amar, is it because it's noten tam lepegam, and noten tam lepegam is asur? He holds like Rabbi Meir, or is it because of a different reason? So says the Gemara, Amale hahu imartute imartit. Says no, there was different. There they caught it so late. And also vinegar being so strong, the mice had fallen apart. The pieces may have been inside this large barrel of vinegar, and when you drink it, if you have one of the shratzim are tameh, are asur, even kadasha, even a very small piece. So even if you have the minutest amount, that's like a adasha only, like a lentil, and you consume that's asur. It's not only taste here we're talking about actual mamashut. That was the problem by the story of Rav Kana. So therefore, says the Gemara, don't try to bring a raya, a proof from the story that happened with Rav Kana, because there was not just a rat that was submerged in vinegar, but it was more than that, and therefore he was machmir. So says the Gemara, Ravina, Sava l'sha'uri b'me'av echad. Ravina said that when he falls into vinegar, you need 101 times more, and then it's mutar. Why? Says the Gemara, Amar lo gara mitruma, shouldn't be worse than truma. If truma, which is a heavy isur, gets mixed with chulin, if you have 101 times keneged it, that would be mutar. So here also should not be worse than that. Amar le Rav Tachlifa Bar Giza le Ravina. Rav Tachlifa Bar Giza tells him, Dilma ke tavlin shel teruma. Maybe it should be like spices. Spices, they're not bater even in 100. They have very strong taste. It's Milta David Alatama. They have very strong taste. And says the Gemara, Rav Tachlifa Bar Giza said maybe here also will be like, who says that it should be like teruma? You say it should be maybe like teruma. There's no real core essential comparison between a rat and teruma, you're just saying that, well, I want usually 60 times more. I go and I find something that's the highest level. Teruma 101. Shouldn't be worse than that. Says Rav Tachlar Giza, who says? We have things that are afilu be'elef lo batil. Even hundreds of times more, it will be not necessarily batil. For instance, if you have spices, you put a little pepper into a food, and you could have like a little spoon in a whole pot. You have 500 times more food, or more even, and the whole thing becomes peppered up, spiced, and properly tasting. You could taste the pepper inside. It's more than 100. So who says that you should compare it with teruma? There's no intrinsic comparison between a rat, one of the shratzim, and teruma. You're just saying big number. Big numbers to go with spices. Who says that it's going to be like teruma? Maybe it's going to be like spices. You hear a powerful question. Who said? So says the Gemara, Dilma ketavlin shel teruma. Some girsao don't have teruma, but the main thing is like spices. Bekedera demi lo batil tamayu. That, you know, maybe they're going to be like tavlin shel teruma bekedera dami. De lo batil tamayu, that their taste does not become batel even in 100 times more. By the way, I was speaking with Rabelski alav Shalom maybe about 15 plus years ago about specific dairy products and whether or not some minute amount of additives would be batel or not, because they put it there, they want it to be there. So in the middle of the discussion, he told me, so you have to also bear in mind that nowadays, with the sophistication of ingredients that we have and the technology that we have, we could condense different elements of ingredients that you have a little powder, but this is condensed, it's dehydrated and powdered afterwards, and it could give taste 1 in 500. It still will give taste, even in small amounts. So he said that what Chazal say 60 is because natural things usually, short of spices, don't give taste more than 60. But if you create something with davka that's a powder, that a little bit of it is going to fix a large quantity of food, that of course you can't say, well, it's batel b'shishim. You know, that's something important to keep in mind as well when you have sometimes small percentage, like you have ingredients and there's less than 2% of natural ingredients. They could be beaver extract or whatnot. It becomes something to be mindful of as well. But be that as it may, says the Gemara, Rav Achai shir b'chala b'chamishin. Rav Achai said vinegar is so strong, the taste of vinegar is so strong that even 1 in 50 already is batil, right? You don't need even 1 in 60. 1 in 50, good enough, because the host taste is so strong that even with a larger amount, even if you have less than 1 in 60, 1 in 50 is less than 1 in 60, right? Even if you have 1 in 50, the taste is going to be nullified, you're good to go. Rav Shmuel bered Rav Ika shir b'shichra b'shitin. He said, no, the regular, good old 1 in 60 is the number, right? That's the magic number, 1 in 60. V'hilcheta, and what's the halacha? Aidi v'aidi, both by vinegar and also by beer, shchar, and chala, by both of them, b'shitin will be batel, b'shishim, of course, here, the Gemara is assuming and paskening that a rat inside shchar or inside vinegar is considered not a tam, the shvach, because we paskin not a tam to is mutar. So it's not a tam the shvach, and 1 in 60 is your magic number. Vechen kol isurin shebatorah says, ends off the Gemara, all of the isurim in the Torah will be the same. The normal would be batel echad b'shishim. Now the Meiri in the beginning of the 7th parak of Mesechet Chulin, has a very long arichut trying to explain this concept of whether or not it's midoraita, this 1 in 60. How about when you find that certain things that are strong tasting, like the spices that we just discussed 2 minutes ago, are not batel, are not nullified 1 in 60. They're not even batel, in hundreds. So he speaks about that core concept, but lemaaseh, the halacha is by regular items, 1 in 60 in all the isurim would be batel. So says the Gemara, and again, of course, this is something that we spoke about, min bemino and min b'sheno mino, davar yavesh, davar lach, even though that this sugya is not the core place of it, it's really in Masechet Chulin, but we spoke about the fact that if you have yavesh beyavesh, if you have cold pieces of cold cuts, for instance, then we go after a rov. If you're not cooking them together, you will have 2 slices of kosher cold cut and 1 treif gets mixed with it, and you can't determine which one is which, right? Then all 3 of them are mutar. You could give them all to Dr. Shea, right? It's like, the question becomes really if you could eat all of them together, which the Rosh Rabbeinu Asher says you could make a sandwich from all 3 of them and eat them together because it's nepach leheter, and the Rashba says no, you cannot. That's already going too far, but you can have them one by one, and on each one you say, well, this is coming from Rov, called the Parish, Meruba Parish. Everyone that separates is come from Rov. Rov is mutar, and it's therefore. And the last one, you'll say, well, probably al pi Rov, I already had it. This one comes from the Rov, also came from the Rov, is mutar, and hence says the Rashba, you can have them one by one, and that is, of course, a person that questions this, says the Pitchet Tshuva, is considered an afikoros because it goes after the Torah. Torah says acharei rabim la'atot, so therefore do not become frumer than the Torah. That's by rov. But when you have a mixture of tastes, you go after shishim, echad v'shishim, by all the yisurim of the Torah. It's a fascinating topic, but not for further talk at this point. It will deserve really the shiur of its own. So says the Mishnah, Oved kochavim shahaya ma'avir im Yisrael kadeh yayin mimakom lemakom. The Mishnah is going to discuss 3 different scenarios that each one of them really seems to say exactly the same thing. And what I was actually going to ask, basically, what's the chidush of the scenario B and C on top of scenario A? It's all seemingly saying the same thing. So what's scenario A? The first one is, if you have wine and a goy is helping you move your kadeh yayin, your sealed barrels of wine, Shaya ma'avir im Yisrael kadeh yayin mimakom lemakom, you're traveling with them, imaya becheskat mishtamer. If you have cheskat mishtamer, you have a situation in which you could assume that this is watched. The Gemara is going to ask, what exactly does that mean? What does it mean that's becheskat mishtamer? That's going to be the first element the Gemara is going to discuss. But if you have that type of situation, that type of setup, then mutar. It's mutar, even though that the goy is helping. We're not concerned that the goy touched it, or poured it, or made it yain nesech. Im hodioshu maflig. But if you told the goy, you know what, I'm just going to be going far, and then I'll at some point catch up with you. If you told him and now he knows that you're going to be out for a while, then, says the Gemara, the wine becomes asur. Because we are concerned that he may have opened the barrels and touched the wine. But that also needs, of course, a clear timeline. So what is the timeline? Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, it's enough time to poke a hole on the top lid of the chavit. Poke a hole, then you could pour wine from it or take with a straw, whatever it is, and then quickly smear some clay inside the hole and make the whole thing look like brand new, and it will dry, right? So that means you poke a hole, you cover it, and it will dry. That's enough to imagine if that takes 2 hours. So 2 hours, depending on how hot it is or whatever it is. So that's the time. Rashbag Omer, Rabban Shimon Gamliel disagrees. Rashbag essentially is going to be more lenient than the Stam Mishnah, than the Tarakama. He says, no, that is going to be obvious. The Goy will never want to do that. Because, try to poke a hole and then cover it. It's going to be a clay that has been dried for 2 months, and 2 hours, it's going to look different. The type of earth is going to be different. The whole thing is going to be pretty obvious, right? Dealing with Jews over here, they're going to know he's not going to risk such a thing. So what is he going to do? He's going to open the entire top of the barrel, pour, and then make a new magufa. Make a new seal with the lid on top. The whole thing, when it's covered with new clay, that looks professional. You cannot tell that this was redone, but of course you need much more time, because now you have a thicker clay. It takes longer to dry. It takes longer to make it, and create the whole thing. So therefore, Rashbag gives you more time. If the first one took 2 hours, this may take 6 hours. But at the end of the day, the Rashbag says that you're not concerned about poking a little hole, because that's going to be pretty obvious.
If you have multiple barrels, wouldn't you still be able to see, like, all these barrels look like?
Not necessarily, because not every barrel looks the same to begin with, necessarily, right? And if it dries, again, it will be, if it's done professionally and it dries well, then it's not as obvious. When you contrast something with an inch away, it's very different than having just a barrel there that totally looks a little bit different, because it could have been different from the beginning. So says the Gemara, says the Mishnah. So that's the Shita of Rashbag versus the Tarakama. Second case, second scenario in the Mishnah. If you have wine, barrels of wine, in a carriage or in sfina, in a boat, in a ship, and you go to a short thing, you stop at the port somewhere, and you say, I'll be back. I'll go 5 minutes. I'll be back. Kapandaria, it's a shortcut. It's a short way. So you tell the guy, I'm going to be right back, right? So it says the Mishnah, Nichnas leMedina. You could even go into the, not just go out of the port, go inside the shopping center, go in the Medina, in the town, even go to a public bath that takes hours and hours. You could go even rachatz. The whole thing is mutar. Why? Because the goy every 5 minutes says, it's going to come right now. Well, how long is it going to be? He said it's going to come in 5 minutes. It's going to be in 5 hours, but it could come 2 seconds from now, right? So therefore, he's not going to risk wanting to do anything wrong. But if you told him, I haven't taken a proper shower for months on this ship, I'm going to go in the Medina, I'm going to do some shopping, then I'm going to go take a bath, that means you're going to be out for 12 hours. If you told him that, then it's going to be a problem. What's the problem? Same shita, same machloket, Tarakama and Rashbag. כדי שיסתום ויסתום ויגוב, רשב"ג אומר, כדי שיפתח את החבית ויגוב ותיגוב. Same מחלוקת. One says, Tarakama holds to poke a hole, smear it, and dry it, and Rashbag says, no, you need enough time, more time, to open the whole thing and create the seal on top of it, and then it should dry. Third and final scenario. If you are a storekeeper, the Jew owns a store with wine inside, and you want to leave the store with your worker who is a Oved Kochavim. So says the Gemara, even though that he went out and he came back in, mutar. It's still mutar, because you say, I'm going to go 2 minutes. I'm going to be back in 2 minutes. So every 2 minutes he thinks he's going to come back right now. And therefore, even if it took longer, it's mutar. But if you told him, if you told him you're going far, then Kadesh Yistom V'Yistom V'Yigov V'Rashbag Omer Kadesh Yiftach Et HaChavit V'Yigov V'Tigov. Same machloket of how long you need for it to become asur if you left the store with the Oved Kochavim alone, knowing that you're going to be going far. Says the Mishnah, Haya Ochel Imo Ala Shulchan. If you are eating together with a goy on a table in your house, and you bring the small bottles of wine on the shulchan, and you also have legin and hadulbiki. You have also a big barrel on. They had like a wooden stand. It was for the house bar, basically. You have that also sitting there. So you leave the goy and go, even for a short time. If you left him, then whatever is on the table is asur. Why? Because you invited him for food, and it's the normal etiquette for him to pour some wine for himself. That's not a problem. He's not going to be afraid of doing that. And how long does that take? 3 seconds? So therefore, if you left him for a short time, whatever is on the table is asur. But what's on the dulbiki, that barrel is mutar, because it's not etiquette for him to, when you have wine on the table, to get up and go get from the source. That already is not really, that would be, you need to be really chodemuni, really friendly with him to do it. That's not the normal etiquette. Unless you told him, feel at home. Says the Mishnah, Shal hadulbiki mutar ve'im amarlo. But if you told him, Heve mozek ve'shoteh, please feel at home. It's your house, and you could do whatever you want, make yourself comfortable, then even what's on dulbiki is going to be asur, because you told him, feel at home. Af shal hadulbiki asur. So chaviot ptuchot, but says the Mishnah, you have to be mindful that that's only for chaviot ptuchot. That's only for open barrels. We are not concerned that he's going to start opening new barrels. That's already you're a guest in somebody's house, and you go to their bar and you take the most expensive bottle without them being there, and you open. You're not. Even if he told you to feel at home. There's always some Persian tarof there. It doesn't mean that you could just do whatever you want. You're not going to be concerned that he opened new barrels of wine or new chaviot. So therefore, the chaviot ptuchot asurot stumot mutarot k'desh yiftach ve'yigov ve'tigov. We have the same time. You still need this time of yiftach ve'yigov ve'tigov. Now, you realize here that the last case of the Mishnah only says Rabban Shimon Gamliel, right? Doesn't bring the Tana Kama. And that's why when we said the Mishnah, we divided it to 3 initial cases and this last case, because this really is paskening whose halacha like. The Mishnah has stam, machloket, v'achar stam. You have Machloket, Tarakama, and Rabban Shimon Gamliel in the first 3 cases of the Mishnah, and then it tells you a case, the last case, the Achar Kach, the last one, comes afterwards, is Stam. The Mishnah only says the Shita of Rabban Shimon Gamliel. And Kol Machloket v'Achar Kach Stam, Halacha Kestam. Whenever the Mishnah does this, it's coming to tell you what the Halacha is. Whenever the Mishnah tells you a Machloket, and then afterwards tells you, either in the same Mishnah or even in the same Masechta. Later on, it tells you a stam is coming to tell you halacha is like that stam. When the Mishnah decides that in the later case, he's not going to tell you that there are 2 shitas, he brings only one of them, picks and chooses, it's telling you exactly that halacha is like the stam. In this case, halacha would be like Rabban Shimon Gamliel, that the hole, poking the hole and fixing it is not. The shiur, we're more lenient, and the shiur is like a whole few good few hours. You have to open the whole thing and reseal the entire seal on top of the chavit, and that would be the halacha. We'll start the Gemara in the days to come.